The rain stopped mattering 3 hours ago. Zariah Monroe pressed her back against the wet brick wall, knees pulled tight to her chest, watching shoes pass in blurred streaks. Expensive sneakers, leather boots, heels clicking fast, none of them slowed. Her coat clung to her skin like a second layer of shame. Water dripped from the ends of her braids, pooling in the cracked pavement beneath her. The street lamp above flickered, on, off, on, casting her shadow in broken intervals. A man walked by, phone pressed to his ear, laughing at something that wasn't her. His shoe splashed through the puddle near her hand. She didn't flinch. A woman stopped 3 feet away, glanced down, then looked past her like Zariah was part of the concrete. The woman's umbrella tilted just enough to keep herself dry. Then she was gone. Zariah's chest tightened, not the sharp kind of pain that makes you cry out. The dull kind. The kind that settles in your bones and whispers that no one is coming. She whispered it back. Please, just one person. Her phone sat beside her, screen black. Dead. The battery had given up an hour ago, same as everything else. No Uber, no messages, no way home, because home didn't exist anymore. Before we continue, besties, please like and subscribe. It's the simplest way to support this channel and help these stories keep coming. We drop new, emotionally gripping stories every day just for you. And don't forget to comment where you're watching from and what time it is there. I'd love to see how far this story of love and destiny has reached. Earlier that night, her landlord had been standing in the doorway when she got there. Arms crossed, eyes flat. Locks are changed, he'd said. No apology. No explanation beyond the 4 days she was late on rent. I just need 2 more days, Zariah had tried. I get paid Friday. I promise. Everyone promises. He shut the door in her face. Her key didn't work anymore. Neither did begging. She'd gone straight to the diner after that, the one where she worked doubles, where her manager called her reliable when it was convenient. She needed an advance, just enough to get the landlord to let her back in. Her manager hadn't even looked up from the register. You cry too much, Zariah, he'd said, voice empty. Customers don't like sad girls. That sentence lived in her throat now, tasting like rust and exhaustion. She wasn't crying anymore. Crying required the belief that someone might care. A group of college students passed by, laughing, wet from the rain but not bothered by it. One of them glanced at Zariah, frowned, then turned back to his friends. Probably on something, he muttered. Zariah didn't correct him. She didn't have the strength. A car passed, then another. Headlights swept over her like searchlights that found nothing worth stopping for. The rain picked up again, colder now, soaking through what was left of her dignity. Her hands shook, not from cold, from the weight of being, invisible. Someone across the street slowed down, a man in a gray hoodie. He stopped, turned, looked directly at her. Zariah's breath caught. He took 1 step forward. Then his phone buzzed. He answered it, laughed, and kept walking. Zariah closed her eyes. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance, close enough to hear, far enough to know they weren't for her. Then the street went quiet. Not the normal kind of quiet, the kind that makes your instincts wake up and scream. Zariah opened her eyes. A black sedan was slowing down in front of her. Matte paint. Tinted windows. The kind of car that doesn't belong in this part of town. The engine hummed low. Controlled. Dangerous. The car stopped. Every muscle in Zariah's body tensed. She pressed harder against the wall, heart pounding in her chest like a warning drum. The back door opened. Do you think Zariah should run? Or is it already too late? Leather shoes touched the wet pavement first, slow, deliberate. Like the man wearing them had all the time in the world and knew it. Zariah's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't see his face yet, just the sharp line of his shoulders, the The way he stood like gravity worked differently for him. Tall, still, completely in control. Two other men stayed near the car, eyes scanning the street like guards watching for threats. Zariah's heart hammered against her ribs. Run. That was the smart choice, but her legs felt locked to the ground. The man stepped into the light. His face wasn't cruel. It wasn't kind either. It was the kind of face that made decisions and didn't second-guess them. Dark eyes, sharp jawline, black coat that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. He looked at her. Not the way people had been looking at her all night, glancing, dismissing, moving on. He looked at her like she was a problem he was deciding whether or not to solve. Zariah's throat went dry. The man crouched down in front of her, not close enough to touch, not far enough to feel safe. He didn't speak right away. He just watched her tears fall, studied them, like he was reading a language most people forgot how to see. Then he asked the question, "Not are you okay? Not what happened. Who hurt you?" His voice was calm, steady, the kind of voice that didn't ask twice. Zariah laughed, sharp, broken. "Everyone," she said, voice raw. "You should leave before I become your problem too." Something shifted in his eyes. Not pity, not sympathy. Recognition. Like he'd heard that sentence before. Maybe said it himself. He stood up slowly, never breaking eye contact, and extended his hand toward her. "The ground is cold," he said. "Get up." Zariah stared at his hand like it was a trap. Because it probably was. Men like him didn't stop for girls like her unless they wanted something. "I don't have anything to give you," she said quietly. "I didn't ask for anything." That scared her more than a threat would have. Across the street, a woman walking her dog froze. Her eyes landed on the car, then the men standing near it. Her face went pale. She turned around and walked the other direction. Fast. Zariah's stomach dropped. She looked back at the man's hand. Still waiting. Still steady. Behind him, one of the guards spoke low into his phone, eyes locked on someone down the block. The other guard shifted his weight, hand resting near his coat pocket. Zariah's pulse spiked. "Who are you?" she whispered. The man's expression didn't change. "My name is Kang Dae-hyun," he said, "and you're not sleeping outside tonight." It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a question. Zariah's mind screamed at her to run, but her body, exhausted, soaked, humiliated, reached for his hand before her brain could stop it. His grip was firm, careful. He pulled her to her feet like she weighed nothing. The moment she stood, the cold hit her harder. Her legs shook. Her vision blurred at the edges. Dae-hyun steadied her with one hand on her elbow. "Can you walk?" he asked. Zariah nodded, even though she wasn't sure. He guided her toward the car. One of the guards opened the back door. Zariah hesitated at the edge of the seat, heart pounding so loud she thought he could hear it. "If I get in," she said, voice trembling. "Where do I end up?" Dae-hyun looked at her for a long moment. Then he answered, "Somewhere safe." Zariah didn't believe him, but she got in anyway. The door closed behind her. The interior was warm, silent, expensive leather, soft lighting. Everything her life wasn't. Dae-hyun slid into the seat across from her, keeping distance between them. The car pulled away from the curb, smooth, quiet, like it had never been there at all. Zariah sat stiff, hands folded tight in her lap, waiting for the cost. There was always a cost. Dae-hyun didn't speak, didn't look at her, just stared out the window like she wasn't even there. But she could feel him. His presence filled the car. And for the first time all night, Zariah wasn't cold anymore. She was terrified. What do you think happens when kindness comes from the most dangerous man in the city? The building had no doorman, no neon signs, no lobby full of people pretending not to stare. just a steel door that opened when Dae-hyun's guard pressed his palm against a black panel. Zariah stepped inside, still dripping rainwater onto polished floors that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with recessed lighting that made everything look like a movie set. Quiet, controlled, expensive. Dae-hyun walked ahead without looking back, like he knew she'd follow. She did. Because where else was she supposed to go? They stopped at a door near the end of the hall. He opened it and stepped aside. "Inside," he said. Zariah hesitated at the threshold, scanning the space. Clean. Warm. A couch that looked like no one had ever sat on it. A table set with food that was still steaming. No chains, no locks. That scared her more than if there had been. "Where's the cost?" she asked, voice flat. Dae-hyun turned to face her, expression unreadable. "There isn't one. Everyone wants something. Not tonight." He gestured toward a door on the left. "Dry clothes are in there, shower's hot. Take your time." Then he walked toward the couch and sat down, pulling out his phone like she'd already disappeared. Zariah stood frozen, waiting for the trap to spring. It didn't. She moved toward the bathroom, steps slow, eyes darting back to make sure he wasn't following. He wasn't. The bathroom was spotless, towels folded perfectly, clothes laid out on the counter, soft, plain, her size. How did he know her size? Her stomach twisted, but the water was hot when she turned it on, and the exhaustion weighing down her bones was heavier than the fear. She showered fast, changed faster. When she came out, Dae-hyun was still on the couch, scrolling through his phone like this was normal. Like picking up strangers in the rain and bringing them to private buildings happened every Tuesday. "Eat," he said without looking up. Zariah walked to the table. Soup, bread, rice, real food. Her hands shook as she picked up the spoon. She ate in silence, waiting for him to say something, demand something, explain something. He didn't. The quiet pressed against her chest until she couldn't take it anymore. "Why did you stop?" she asked. Dae-hyun finally looked up. "Because no one else did." Zariah's throat tightened. She set the spoon down, gripping the edge of the table. "I send money home every month," she said, voice cracking. "For my mom. Cancer treatments. I work doubles at a diner where my manager tells me I cry too much. My landlord changed the locks because I was 4 days late." 4 days? "I don't have friends who can help. I don't have family here. I survive. That's it. That's all I do. And tonight," her voice broke. "Tonight I sat on a street corner and begged God to send just one person. Just one. And you showed up." She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "So, tell me why. Because men like you don't stop for girls like me unless they want something." Dae-hyun leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on hers. "People mistake endurance for weakness," he said quietly. Zariah's laugh came out bitter. "And people like you mistake power for morality." His expression didn't change. "No," he said. "I mistake morality for choice." Zariah stared at him, chest heaving, trying to figure out if he was lying. She couldn't tell. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. Then footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Fast. Purposeful. Dae-hyun's entire body shifted. Not panic. Control sharpening into focus. The door opened without a knock. A man in a tailored suit stepped inside, eyes cold, scanning the room until they landed on Zariah. He didn't smile, didn't greet her, just looked at Dae-hyun and spoke like she wasn't even there. "Boss," he said, voice calm but edged, "you're making yourself visible." Zariah's blood went cold. "Boss." Dae-hyun stood slowly, buttoning his coat. "We'll talk outside," he said. The man glanced at Zariah one more time, eyes empty, calculating, then turned and left. Dae-hyun followed him to the door, paused, looked back at her. "Don't leave this room," he said. Then he was gone. The door clicked shut, and for the first time since getting in that car, Zariah realized she had no idea where she was, or who she was trapped with. What did Zariah just walk into? And is it too late to leave? The voices outside were muffled but sharp. Zariah pressed her ear against the door, heart pounding so hard she thought it might give her away. "You brought her here?" The man's voice cut through the silence like glass. "To your building?" Dae-hyun's response was quieter, controlled. "She had nowhere else to go. That's not your problem. I made it my problem. Then you made her a liability." Zariah's stomach dropped. The voices moved farther down the hall. She strained to hear, catching fragments. Already asking questions. Marcus saw the car. Her landlord works for Benson. Her landlord. Zariah's hands went numb. She stepped back from the door, mind racing. Her landlord wasn't just some guy who owned a building. He worked for someone connected to Dae-hyun, or against him. The door opened. Zariah jumped back, pulse spiking. Dae-hyun stepped inside, face unreadable, and closed the door behind him. He didn't speak right away, just looked at her, like he was deciding something. "Sit down," he finally said. Zariah didn't move. "I'd rather stand." "Sit down, Zariah." The way he said her name, calm, final, made her legs move before her brain caught up. She sat. Dae-hyun stayed standing, hands in his pockets, eyes locked on hers. "I'm going to tell you the truth," he said, "and you're going to listen without interrupting." Zariah's throat tightened. "I'm not just wealthy," he continued. "I control things, routes, money, debts, people who owe favors, and people who can't afford not to pay them." Her chest went cold. "Your landlord," Dae-hyun said, voice even. "He works for a man named Victor Benson. Benson collects for people who don't like waiting. Your rent was late because your manager at the diner held your paycheck. He held it because he owes Benson $12,000 and thought skimming your wages would buy him time." Zariah's breath caught. "Your manager didn't fire you because you cry too much," Dae-hyun said. "He kept you because desperate workers don't ask questions." Tears burned at the edges of Zariah's eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you asked why I stopped." He stepped closer, crouching down so they were eye level. "I stopped because the moment I saw you sitting there, I knew exactly what kind of pain you were in. The kind people ignore because acknowledging it means admitting the system is broken. And I'm part of that system, Zariah. I benefit from it, but tonight..." He paused. "Tonight, I chose differently." Zariah's hands trembled in her lap. "And now I'm a liability," she whispered. "Yes," the word landed like a punch. "You should let me go," Zariah said, voice breaking, "before I ruin something for you." Dae-hyun's expression didn't change. "You didn't ruin anything," he said quietly. "You reminded me." "Of what?" "What it feels like to be ignored." The air between them felt too heavy to breathe. Zariah wiped her eyes, anger rising in her chest. "So what now?" she asked. "You hide me? Protect me? Keep me here like some kind of..." "No." He stood up. "You stay here tonight. Tomorrow you decide what you want to do. If you want to leave, I'll make sure you're safe. If you want to stay..." He stopped. "If you stay, things get complicated." Zariah stood, legs shaking, fists clenched. "My whole life is complicated," she said. "At least tell me what I'm choosing." Dae-hyun looked at her for a long moment. Then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen. His jaw tightened. "Get away from the window," he said, voice sharp. Zariah's heart stopped. "What?" "Get away from the window. Now." She stumbled backward just as the lights cut out. The entire building went dark. Zariah's breath caught in her throat, and in the silence, she heard it. Glass shattering somewhere below, footsteps, fast, coming closer. Will Zariah survive the night, or did kindness just seal her fate? The darkness swallowed everything. Zariah's pulse hammered in her ears, so loud she couldn't hear anything else. She pressed her back against the wall, hands shaking, eyes straining to see something. Anything in the pitch black. "Dae-hyun?" she whispered. No answer. Then she felt his hand on her arm, firm, steady, pulling her down. "Stay low," he said, voice barely audible. "Don't move. Don't speak." Her throat locked up. Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Not one person. Multiple. Moving with purpose. Moving like they knew exactly where they were going. Zariah's chest tightened. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Glass shattered again, closer this time. A door slammed open somewhere down the hall. Voices shouted, overlapping, aggressive. "Check every room! Find him!" Dae-hyun's grip on her arm tightened. He pulled her toward the far corner of the room, away from the door, shielding her body with his. Zariah could feel his heartbeat against her shoulder. Calm, controlled, like he'd done this before. The door to their room burst open. Light from a flashlight cut through the darkness, sweeping across the walls, the furniture, hunting. Zariah bit down on her lip to keep from screaming. The beam landed on Dae-hyun. A man stepped inside, gun raised. "There you are," he said, voice cold. Dae-hyun didn't move, didn't flinch. "You made a mistake coming here," Dae-hyun said quietly. The man laughed. "The mistake was yours, Kang. Picking up strays, getting soft." He shifted the flashlight toward Zariah. She froze. The light hit her face, blinding her. "This? Her?" the man asked, almost amused. "The girl you're risking everything for?" Dae-hyun stepped in front of her, blocking the light, blocking the gun. "Last chance," Dae-hyun said. "Walk away." The man smirked. "Benson sends his regards." He pulled the trigger. The sound exploded through the room. Deafening, violent, too close. But Zariah didn't feel pain. She opened her eyes and saw Dae-hyun standing, unhurt, the man on the floor, gun knocked from his hand, blood pooling beneath him. Dae-hyun's knuckles were split. Blood dripped from his fingers. He crouched down, grabbed the man by the collar and spoke so low, Zariah almost couldn't hear it. "Tell Benson I'm not soft. Tell him I'm done pretending." He let the man go. The man scrambled to his feet and ran. Footsteps pounded in the hallway, more of them retreating now, fast, panicked. The building went silent again. Dae-hyun turned to face Zariah. His expression was calm, but his hands were covered in blood. Zariah's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, shaking uncontrollably, bile rising in her throat. Dae-hyun knelt in front of her, hands hovering near her shoulders but not touching. "Breathe," he said. "You're safe." Zariah's voice came out broken. "Safe?" She laughed, sharp, hysterical. He had a gun. I know. You could have died." "I didn't." Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't ask you to save me," she whispered. Dae-hyun's eyes softened. "I know," he said. "That's why I did." The lights flickered back on. Zariah looked around the room. Shattered glass, overturned furniture, blood on the floor. This wasn't safety. This was war. And she was standing in the middle of it. Dae-hyun stood, pulling out his phone, already making calls, already moving. But Zariah couldn't move, couldn't think. She stared at the blood on the floor and realized something that made her stomach drop. He didn't just protect her, he chose her. And that choice just put a target on, both their backs. Dae-hyun finished his call, crouched down again, meeting her eyes. "I need you to listen to me," he said. "This won't stop. Benson won't stop. Not unless I make him." Zariah's breath hitched. "What does that mean?" "It means things are going to get worse before they get better." She grabbed his arm, fingers digging in. "Then let me go," she said, "before I destroy everything." Dae-hyun looked at her like she'd just said something impossible. "You already did," he said quietly. Then he stood and walked toward the door. "Get some rest," he said. "We leave in the morning." The door closed behind him, and Zariah sat alone in the wreckage, wondering if she'd just been saved. Or sentenced. Can love survive when protection becomes a death sentence? Zariah didn't sleep. She sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the bloodstains someone had tried to clean off the floor. They'd scrubbed hard, but the shadow of it remained, just like everything else from tonight. The door opened quietly. Dae-hyun stepped inside, changed clothes, no blood on his hands anymore, but Zariah could still see it, could still hear the sound of bone meeting flesh, the weight of a body hitting the ground. He didn't speak, just walked to the window and stood there, back to her, hands in his pockets. The silence pressed against Zariah's chest until she couldn't hold it in anymore. "Why didn't you just let them take me?" she asked. Dae-hyun turned slowly, eyes tired but sharp. "Because that's not who I am. You're a killer." "Yes." No hesitation, no shame. Zariah's breath caught. "Then what am I doing here?" Dae-hyun crossed the room and sat down across from her, not close, never too close, but present. "You're here because I made a choice," he said, "and I don't regret it. Even if it costs you everything?" Even then. Zariah's hands trembled in her lap. "I don't understand you," she whispered. "You could have walked past me. You could have ignored me like everyone else. But you stopped. You risked everything for someone you don't even know. I know enough. You don't know anything about me." Dae-hyun leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on hers. "I know you send money home every month even when you don't have enough to eat. I know you work yourself to exhaustion because you think that's what strength looks like. I know you cried on that street corner not because you were weak, but because you were tired of being strong alone." Zariah's chest tightened. "How do you—" "Because I've been there," he said quietly. "Different life. Same feeling." Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "You shouldn't have stopped for me," she said, voice breaking. "Probably not. You should have kept driving. Maybe. You should, but I didn't." The words hung between them, heavy and final. Zariah wiped her eyes, angry at herself for crying again. "What happens now?" she asked. Dae-hyun stood, buttoning his coat. "Now, I make sure Benson understands that touching you means war." "That's not what I meant." He paused, looked at her. "What did you mean?" Zariah stood too, hands clenched at her sides. "What happens to us?" she asked. "You can't protect me forever, and I can't stay here pretending this is normal." "It's not normal." "Then what is it?" Dae-hyun's jaw tightened. He took a step closer, close enough that Zariah could feel the heat coming off him, close enough to see the exhaustion in his eyes, close enough to see something else, something he was fighting not to show. "It's a choice I made," he said, voice low, "and I'll keep making it until you're safe." "And then what?" "Then you decide." "Decide what?" "If you want me to disappear." Zariah's breath hitched. She stared at him, heart pounding, trying to find words that made sense. But before she could speak, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his entire expression shifted. "Stay here," he said. "Where are you? Going?" "To finish what they started." Zariah grabbed his arm before he could leave. "Don't," she said. "Please, don't go." Dae-hyun looked down at her hand on his arm, then up at her face. "I have to." "Why?" "Because if I don't, they'll come back. And next time, I might not be fast enough." Zariah's grip tightened. Then take me with you. No, I'm already part of this. Not like that. His voice was firm, final. He gently removed her hand from his arm, held it for a moment, warm, steady, then let go. Lock the door behind me, he said. Don't open it for anyone. Then he was gone. The door clicked shut, and Zariah stood alone, heart racing, mind spinning, realizing something that terrified her more than the violence. She didn't want him to leave. She wanted him to stay, and that, more than anything, made her dangerous to him. The police station smelled like cheap coffee and broken promises. Zariah sat in the hard plastic chair, hands folded on the metal table, staring at the officer across from her who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Miss Monroe, he said, flipping through papers without really reading them. You're saying your landlord illegally evicted you. Your employer withheld wages, and both are connected to organized crime. Yes, he sighed. Do you have proof? Zariah slid a folder across the table. Inside were pay stubs, bank statements, text messages, photos of the changed locks, a recording of her manager admitting he borrowed from her paycheck. The officer stared at the folder like it was a bomb. Where did you get all this? I documented everything. He looked up, eyes narrowing. You know what happens to people who file reports like this? I do. And you're doing it anyway? Yes. The officer leaned back, studying her. You got a death wish, Miss Monroe? Zariah met his gaze, jaw tight. No, she said. I got tired of being invisible. 3 weeks had passed since that night at Daehyun's building. 3 weeks since. She'd watched him walk out the door covered in someone else's blood. He hadn't come back. Not the next morning. Not the day after. She'd left on her own, found a shelter. Then a couch to sleep on. Then a tiny room in a boarding house with locks that actually worked. She got a new job. Different diner. Better tips. Manager who didn't steal from her. And every night she wrote everything down. Every name, every date, every piece of evidence she could find. Because Daehyun had protected her with violence. She would protect herself with truth. The officer closed the folder. I'll file the report, he said. But don't expect miracles. Zariah stood. I'm not expecting miracles, she said. I'm expecting justice. She walked out of the station into the cold afternoon air, hands shaking but steady. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She opened the message. Stop asking questions. Final warning. Zariah's stomach twisted. She deleted the message. Kept walking. That night, another message came. Then another. You're making a mistake. People who talk don't last long. Think about your mother. Zariah's blood went cold. Her mother. She called home immediately, heart pounding. Her aunt picked up on the third ring. Zariah, baby, what's wrong? Is mom okay? She's fine. Why? What happened? Zariah exhaled, legs shaking. Nothing. Just tell her I love her. She hung up, stared at her phone. Someone knew about her mother. Someone was watching. But she didn't stop. The next day she filed another report. Talked to a lawyer who worked pro bono cases, built her case piece by piece. She didn't see Daehyun, but sometimes, late at night, she felt him. A car parked across the street that wasn't there in the morning. A man in a coffee shop who left right after she did. Footsteps behind her that disappeared when she turned around. He was protecting her. Just from a distance. Weeks turned into a month. Zariah's case moved forward. Slowly, bureaucratically, but forward. Her landlord got investigated. Her old manager got audited. Small victories, but victories. She got a better apartment, paid first and last month herself. No one could take it from her. Her mother's treatment stayed on schedule. The money kept flowing. Zariah started breathing again, started sleeping through the night, started believing she could survive this. until the envelope showed up. No return address. Inside was a single photo, her, walking to work, and written on the back in red ink, "One enemy left. He doesn't forgive." Zariah's hands trembled. She looked out her window. The street was empty, but somewhere in the shadows someone was still watching, and she realized with cold certainty, this wasn't over. Who's still hunting her, and how long until they strike? 3 months later, Zariah stood in her small kitchen, stirring soup that smelled like her mother's recipe, and realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd cried. The apartment was quiet, clean, hers. Bills paid on time. Rent, never late. Groceries in the fridge, a life that felt normal, except for the part where she couldn't stop thinking about him. Dae-hyun. She hadn't seen him since that night, hadn't heard from him, no calls, no texts, no men in dark cars watching from across the street. He'd disappeared like he'd never existed, like she'd imagined the whole thing. But the scar on her palm from where she'd gripped broken glass that night said otherwise. She turned off the stove, poured the soup into a bowl, sat down at her small table. Ate alone. The silence used to feel like peace. Now it felt like waiting. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it too fast. Just her aunt. "Your mom's doing great. Doctor said the treatments are working. We're so proud of you, baby." Zariah smiled, typed back a quick response, set the phone down. She should feel relieved. She should feel safe. But safety felt like distance now, and distance felt wrong. She grabbed her coat, headed out. No destination in mind, just movement. The city looked different now, less hostile, less sharp. Or maybe she was different, stronger, harder, lonelier. She passed the diner where she used to work. New management, new staff. Her old manager had been arrested 2 weeks ago. Wage theft, fraud, assault. Zariah had testified. She'd won. But victory felt hollow when the person who'd started it all wasn't there to see it. She kept walking. Hours passed. The streetlights flickered on. And that's when she felt it. Someone behind her. Zariah's pulse spiked. She turned quickly. A man in a black hoodie stood 20 feet back, watching. She took a step forward. He didn't move. "Can I help you?" she called out. No answer. Zariah's hand slipped into her pocket, fingers wrapping around the pepper spray she carried now. The man pulled out his phone, made a call, then turned and walked away. Fast. Zariah's chest tightened. She pulled out her own phone, hands shaking, and did something she'd promised herself she wouldn't do. She texted the last number that had contacted her months ago, the one she'd saved under "Don't." "I think someone's following me again." She hit send before she could stop herself. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. The response came through. "I know, I sent him." Zariah stopped walking, stared at the screen. "You're still protecting me?" I never stopped. Her throat tightened. "Why?" The 3 dots hovered for a long time. Then, "Because I can't seem to stop making that choice." Zariah's hands trembled. "Where are you?" No response. She waited. 5 minutes. 10. Still nothing. She typed again. "I need to see you." Another long pause. Then, "You don't need me anymore. You're safe." Zariah's chest ached. "That's not what I said." "I know." "Then why won't you come back?" The final message came through slowly. "Because staying away is how I keep you alive." The phone went silent after that. No more messages, no more 3 dots, just emptiness. Zariah stood on the corner, tears burning her, eyes realizing something that hurt more than being ignored ever did. He loved her enough to leave, and she loved him enough to hate it. Across the city, Dae-hyun sat in his car, phone in his hand, staring at her last message. His second-in-command sat in the passenger seat, silent. "You should go to her," the man finally said. Dae-hyun didn't respond. Boss, you've been watching her for 3 months. She's stable, she's safe. Benson's people backed off. Because I made sure they did. Exactly. So why are you still sitting here? Dae-hyun's jaw tightened. Because the moment I go back, I put her in danger again. Or maybe she's already in danger, and you're just too scared to admit you want her. Dae-hyun's knuckles went white around the phone. It's not about what I want. Then what's it about? Dae-hyun looked out the window at the street lamp where he'd first seen her. It's about what she deserves. The other man sighed. And what if what she deserves is a choice? Dae-hyun didn't answer. That night, Zariah walked back to the street lamp. The same one. The one where everything changed. She sat down on the curb. Not because she was homeless, not because she was broken, because she was hoping he'd stop again. Will love be strong enough to close the distance, or will fear keep them apart forever? He was already there. Zariah saw him before he saw her, standing under the street lamp, hands in his pockets, staring at the exact spot where she'd sat 3 months ago. Her breath caught. She stopped walking. For a moment she thought about turning around, pretending she hadn't seen him, letting him stay in the past where maybe he belonged, but her feet moved forward anyway. Dae-hyun turned, their eyes met, and everything else disappeared. The street, the noise, the fear, just him, just her. Hi, Zariah said, voice barely above a whisper. Hi, Dae-hyun replied. Neither of them moved. The silence stretched between them like a bridge neither knew how to cross. Finally, Zariah broke. Why? She asked, voice cracking. Why did you leave? Dae-hyun's jaw tightened. Because staying would have gotten you killed. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Zariah stepped closer, anger rising in her chest. You don't get to decide what's best for me, she said. You don't get to protect me by disappearing. I protected you by staying away. No. Her voice shook. You abandoned me. The word hit him like a punch. Dae-hyun looked away, jaw working, hands clenched in his pockets. I did what I had to do, he said quietly. And I did what I had to do, Zariah shot back. I fought. I documented. I testified. I built a life without you. She took another step closer. But every single night, I wondered if you were okay. If you were safe. If you thought about me the way I thought about you. Dae-hyun's eyes snapped back to hers. Every night, he said, voice rough. Every single night. Zariah's breath hitched. Then why are we standing here pretending we don't want this? Because wanting something doesn't make it right. And walking away doesn't make it safe. Dae-hyun stepped closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he'd been carrying alone. You don't understand what being with me means, he said. The enemies, the violence, the constant threat. I can't give you normal, Zariah. I can't give you peace. I don't want normal, she said, voice steady. I want real. This is as real as it gets. Then stop running from it. The air between them felt electric. A car slowed down across the street. Dark windows. Engine idling. Dae-hyun's entire body went rigid. His hand moved to his coat. Zariah saw it too. Her pulse spiked. The car sat there, watching, waiting. Then it drove away. Slowly. Dae-hyun didn't relax. See, he said quietly. This is what I mean. You can't even stand on a street corner without becoming a target. Then stop making me stand here alone. Dae-hyun looked at her, really. Looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. You're not afraid, he said almost to himself. I'm terrified, Zariah admitted. But I'm more afraid of losing you without ever really having you. Dae-hyun's hand moved toward her face, hesitated, then touched her cheek. Gentle. Careful. Like she was something precious he didn't deserve to hold. I stopped for you because I saw myself in that moment, he said, voice low. I saw what it's like to be ignored, to be invisible, to beg for help and get nothing. His thumb brushed away a tear she didn't know had fallen. I was 14, he continued. My father owed money to the wrong people. They came to our house. My mother begged them to stop. I begged them to stop. His voice cracked. No one stopped. Zariah's hand covered his. I'm sorry, she whispered. I survived because I learned to become the person people fear instead of the person they ignore. I built power, control, everything I needed to make sure I'd never be helpless again. He pulled his hand back, looked away. And then I saw you, and I remembered what it felt like before. And I couldn't. His voice broke. I couldn't just drive past. Zariah stepped into him, wrapping her arms around his waist, pressing her face against his chest. He froze, then his arms came around her. Tight, like he was holding on to the only thing that mattered. You saved me, Zariah whispered against his coat. No, Dae-hyun said quietly. You reminded me. They stood there under the street lamp, holding each other, while the world kept moving around them. And for the first time in months, neither of them felt alone. Dae-hyun pulled back just enough to look at her. If we do this, he said. If we try, we will, Zariah said firmly. His lips almost smiled. Almost. Then you need to know. Kindness changed me, but it also made me a target, and anyone I care about becomes one too. I know. And you still want this? Zariah looked up at him, eyes clear. I choose this, she said. I choose you. Dae-hyun kissed her forehead. Soft, reverent, like a promise. Then I'll spend the rest of my life making sure that choice doesn't destroy you. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because choosing love in a dangerous world comes with a price. Comment below and tell us, would you risk everything for the person who saved you? Don't miss the final chapter where everything collides. 2 weeks later, Zariah woke up in Dae-hyun's arms. The morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and warm, turning everything gold. She watched him sleep, face relaxed, guard down, finally at peace. This was real. They were real. And somehow, against all logic, it worked. He'd been honest about everything. The business. The danger. The enemies who'd never forget. She'd been honest too. About her fears. Her mother. The nightmares that still woke her up some nights. They chose each other anyway, not because it was easy, because it was worth it. Dae-hyun's eyes opened slowly. He smiled when he saw her watching. Morning, he said, voice rough with sleep. Morning, Zariah whispered back. He pulled her closer, kissed the top of her head. You regret it yet? He asked. Not even a little. Give it time, she laughed. I'm serious, he said, but his tone was light. I'm difficult, complicated, dangerous. And I'm stubborn, emotional, and I don't back down. I noticed. They lay there in comfortable silence, listening to the city wake up outside. My mother wants to meet you, Zariah said eventually. Dae-hyun tensed. Are you sure that's a good idea? Nope, but I'm doing it anyway. He sighed. You really don't make anything easy, do you? Would you want me to? He looked at her, eyes soft. No. That afternoon, they drove to the hospital where Zariah's mother was finishing her latest round of treatments. Her aunt was there, her cousins, all of them staring at Dae-hyun like he'd walked in from another planet. Which, in a way, he had. Zariah's mother sat in the chair by the window, wrapped in blankets, thin but smiling. So you're the one? She said when Dae-hyun approached. Yes, ma'am. The one who stopped? Yes. She studied him for a long moment, then held out her hand. Daehyun took it gently. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing her when no one else did." Daehyun's throat tightened. "She saved me just as much." Zariah's mother smiled. "Good," she said, "because my daughter doesn't do anything halfway. If she chose you completely. Don't waste it." "I won't." They left the hospital an hour later, hands intertwined, hearts full. Zariah looked up at him. "That wasn't so bad, was it? Your aunt threatened to kill me if I hurt you. She's protective. I respect that." They walked in silence for a bit. Then Daehyun stopped. "What?" Zariah asked. He pulled out his phone, stared at the screen, jaw tightening. "What is it?" she asked, worry creeping into her voice. He showed her the message. "Benson's nephew is out. He's asking questions. Wants revenge." Zariah's stomach dropped. "I thought this was over." "It's never over," Daehyun said quietly. "Not in this world." He looked at her, eyes serious. "You still have time to walk away." Zariah grabbed his hand. "Stop asking me that," she said firmly. "I'm not going anywhere." "This could get bad, Zariah." "Then we'll handle it. Together." Daehyun pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met," he murmured, "or the most reckless." "Why not both?" He almost laughed. Almost. That night, they sat on the rooftop of his building, looking out at the city lights, knowing that somewhere out there, danger was coming. But they weren't running. They were standing. Together. "You know what I realized?" Zariah said quietly. "What?" "The night you stopped for me. I thought you were saving me. But really, we were saving each other." Daehyun's hand tightened around hers. "Yeah," said. "We were." They sat in silence, watching the city breathe, and in the shadows below, a figure stood watching them. Waiting. Planning. Because revenge doesn't care about love. It only cares about settling debts. And Victor Benson's nephew had a very long memory. The message came through on Daehyun's phone one more time that night. "She made you weak, and weakness gets punished." Daehyun deleted it, pulled Zariah closer, and made a silent vow. If they came for her, they'd have to go through him first, and he'd make sure they regretted it. Zariah looked up at him, sensing the shift. "What is it?" "Nothing," he said, "just thinking." "About?" He kissed her. Deep. Real. About how some choices are worth fighting for. Zariah smiled against his lips. Good answer. But as the city lights flickered below them, both of them knew. The fight was just beginning. And this time, love had everything to lose. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story isn't over. The most dangerous chapter is yet to come. Comment below. Do you think love can survive when revenge comes knocking? Share your thoughts and inspire others with your words. We drop new stories daily, and your support keeps these emotional journeys alive. Don't miss what happens next.